Well, a little bit about the basic operation. Um, the texture knob is your key. You can get, if you have a low output guitar or an active bass, depending on what your pre-gain, your input gain is, you can get from just barely squeaking through and like a lot of stutter effect, super lo-fi, all the way up to screaming synth fuzz, the richest, most sizzled out texture you would want. And that's just with using a buffer or a little bit of boost. And everything in between, including if you get your volume knob to where that gate is just cracked open and you ride it in there, it'll tremolo. It'll rapidly engage and disengage and give you a tremolo effect, which was so cool. I was able to utilize that and actually control the rate of the tremolo just by grabbing the volume knob of the guitar and then slowly adjusting it would speed up or slow down the tremolo. The first song was kind of a 50s-ish horror vibe, Monsters meets Addams Family. I did have, this is a bass EQ, but it was not engaged, just the buffer. Gave me enough sizzle to replicate. Frank Zappa's Fountain of Love song was the first song ever recorded with a bass distortion, a bass fuzz. That was a phono preamp, a record preamp on the bass, and that was about what I got. That's about what I was going for. That was actually what I wanted, and I didn't really push it very much. The guitar for that song is the Decca guitar, and I did have a slight amount of EQ on that, and then when the song dropped down I would disengage it rather than messing with the volume pedal, and I was able to really get it to kind of stutter just right on the intro and outro of some of the notes how I wanted it by adjusting just over unity gain, and then when I wanted to do that would click off and I could get it to stutter, which was so cool. Song 2, it's a sad piece. Use the acoustic with this CAD USB mic, $35. Sounds pretty good for a $4 guitar and a $35 USB condenser. Now, some of these pieces were sad acoustic pieces and I didn't really have room to put in a bunch of fuzzed out psychedelic guitar. But I did some drones with it, and I had those bleed in, and it's like a synthy feedback kind of effect, and that's just a little bit of working the volume knob. Song 3, called It Zombie, was a ripoff of the Dawn of the Dead theme, ominous repetitive bass, climbing a scale. I did a sustainer trick where I would play a lead, and then for the next section I would just kind of put the sustainer on and then pull it out and go into octave mode with this simulated feedback and push that back in, track that in stereo. Interesting effect. And for the intro and outro I did that tremolo effect coming in and out and adjusting that rate. Kind of a Morse code-y sounding, add a little tension to it. Really cool effect. Instant tremolo out of a fuzz pedal. The next sequence is this reflective part where he's watching Super 8 movies. I use the first act again. There's a bass solo in that song, and I absolutely love the tone. I used the buffer. It's not an active bass, it's not really that hot of an output. You know what, I had this on. I did have this on for the just above unity gain, pushing the bass and killing some of the high frequencies for that bass solo, but I love that tone I'm getting on there. It's not full up though, that's coming. And I just thought it was really cool. I was able to download some Debbie Ever demo video and use her on the movie screen. Also the Dwarfcraft guy pops in there, kind of a faux appearance of the faux villain in the scene, the man behind the curtain. I thought that was really, really cool. And also I used my footage of my first Debbie Ever pedal demo for the US Fuzz. If you haven't checked that out, check it out. It's a real fun demo. Great pedal. Track 5, I merely flipped Track 3, the zombie thing, and that sounded pretty cool to me, so I left that with some sound effects on top of it. Song 6, the garlic song, the love theme, was again the cheap first act. Bass line kind of reminded me of Sun King by the Beatles after I was laying down the last track. This does sound familiar. The harmony guitars at the very end, there's a little harmony guitar, like dual guitar. I processed that with a cabinet simulator plugin to make it sound like it was on an AM radio. A little whacked out delay on the last note to kind of throw it off into oblivion. So I did cheat there. All of these songs were merely recorded with these two. Sometimes I would use the EQ on, not really that much. And this is my interface again, the Korg Pandora. Used 2 different patches on this, 2 different cabinet simulators, and they both of those patches have a little bit of reverb on them. One a little more than the other. One is a little dark, one's a little bright. Both of them are bass cabinets, speaker simulators. They're not, I don't think they're amp sims, they're just cab sim. So, speaker simulator, I should say. Now, there's a chase song. I got this percussion sample, it's not a Middle Eastern goom, you know, I thought, well, that would work pretty well. So I added in, I got a kick drum and a hi-hat sample and looped that in manually to give it a little oomph. Multi-tracked a bunch of basses on that, and a bunch of different gain levels. There's like a kind of a funky bass that's just the just the buffer, and there's a little bit hotter stuff going on, sizzly little accent hits that bounce back and forth, where I played every other note and then panned those separate recordings. Came out pretty cool, and the guitar tones on this chase song with that, I'm not sure if it was because it's this pedal or that harmony, that Decca guitar with the gold foil pickup, but as I multi-tracked it, it started sounding more and more like a horn section. And man, does that sound cool. It sounds like horns. It sounds like a horn section. It's just me doing one note at a time with the OK fuzz. So that was a laugh out loud moment, or several moments. I could not believe how cool it sounded. Track 8, the Tom Tom song. I had this loop of this really, Tom Tom kind of real active thing, and set that up for multiple bars. I had 1 straight bass and 3 to 5 fuzz basses. I had a funk bass going on, had a couple sizzles. There is a low gain fuzz, there's a high gain fuzz on the bass, there's all kinds of guitar tracks, there's a dual lead, and then there's a synthy bass solo where I've got everything turned up at the end. And then you get this video gamey sound, the end of that track 8, absolutely fabulous. If you listen to that on a good speaker system, you get the full effect. Really, I am going to be having some fun with this OK fuzz. I'm glad I watched the demo and figured out how versatile it is, because with a low output pickup, I would not have been as happy. I would not have had the options that I have now knowing. And I do have an active bass, so I can't wait to see what I can do with that, with using this. I did not use an active bass for this, it was just that unicorn. Now I have, song 9 is this, it's called Surrounded. That was a real cop-out. It took me about 5 minutes to record. Multi-track, some thumping bass, 3 notes on the bass. Did the same drone kind of thing with some dive bombs on it, and added some sound effects. But you know what, it works. It absolutely works. Now, track 10 was the sad song that I cut in half and flipped it. It's got that cool bass solo on it. At the very end of that, it's the end of she's in the church, the very end of the thing, I multi-tracked the guitar, and it ended up sounding a lot like a pipe organ. I added a little reverb after it. Even without the reverb, it sounded like a pipe organ. I mean, it was the phrasing, it was what I played, the notes I played, one note at a time to get full definition. It's important to mention that this type of a fuzz, if you start trying to play chords, you're gonna lose definition quite a bit. So this is an excellent pedal for live use. I'm not down talking it for live. You have to know how to play with a good fuzz pedal. But for multi-tracking, what I found, I was able to simulate brass horn section, also pipe organ. So that really shocked me. That was something I'd never done before. I mean, I've got a guitar sense, so I have done it. But this sounded a lot. So I wanted to say peace and keep on hacking.